It is a well-established fact that here on Delmarva, the resistance to slavery in the mid-19th century was very active. The Underground Railroad was in heavy operation on both sides of the Chesapeake Bay during the time.
The community players of Salisbury will present Paths to Freedom, the Underground Railroad on Maryland's Eastern Shore, and Uncle Tom's Cabin to help tell these important stories. And here to explain more about these stories is Matt Bogdan. He is the Vice President of the Community Players of Salisbury. Matt, good to see you back in Historic Studio D.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here this afternoon.
So, most of us have read Uncle Tom's Cabin, but can you talk a little bit about what these shows are from, the book they're from?
Well, the book itself, which was actually, it's a banned book in some places, was really a protest novel. It was published in 1852, and it tells the story of Uncle Tom, a very pious slave, and what he endured. And as a subplot, there's also a George and Eliza and their child who are also on the run. There's the famous scene of them crossing the Ohio River, or of she on the Ohio River crossing the ice. And so we wound up portraying that in a storytelling format of telling that particular story of Uncle Tom and what happened in that. At the beginning of the play that I've adapted, we do tell about the story of the Underground Railroad on the Eastern Shore. And we wound up covering, of course, some of the famous names of Harriet Tubman, of course, and Frederick Douglass, but we also focus in on some of the lesser known names. Like there was a Henry Cotton, for example, who was a slave who ran away from a master who was down in Pocomoke, Maryland, and he wound up living in the Pocomoke forest for over a year before he made his way to Philadelphia and found himself in the hands of William Still, who actually wrote the book, The Underground Railroad, in the late 1800s, where we find out about Henry and others like him. So it's quite a fascinating story.
Was it difficult putting the production together?
The challenge was taking a large novel like that and then just pulling the scenes out that would apply to the storytelling format which I like to use. So that was the challenge, to make sure to do, because it's a long book, you can't do the whole thing. But you know what's interesting about that book is that it has been adapted to the stage more than any other book in history. Really? Yes, and of course throughout time, unfortunately, it was bastardized and portrayed in, they got into more of a minstrel show aspect, and so therefore the stereotypes evolved from it. So I'm playing it, the authentic, showing Tom as a true pious man who sacrificed for his family and his friends, and therefore received, unfortunately, some horrible consequences because of it, his death and being whipped to death. So it's quite the story, to say the least. Well, what I also found out about it was, as I started doing the research on this, there was a Samuel Green who lived in East New Market, Maryland. And I taught English for many years and taught Uncle Tom's Cabin, but I just recently found out about this. And he was a slave who wound up in 1857, was accused of helping some fugitives known as the Dover Eight. And so they searched his house, and they didn't find the fugitives, but they found a copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Wow. So what? Well, it was illegal for a black person at that time, whether or not they were free or a slave, to be in possession of anti-slavery literature. This is a true story. He was arrested, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison simply for possessing this book. A Maryland governor eventually pardons him. After 5 years, he makes his way to Canada to see his son who lived there, and Harriet Beecher Stowe meets him and gives him a brand new copy of the book.
That's
True
amazing.
Story.
So how can folks see Paths to Freedom?
They can go to, best places to go to our website, the Community Players website, communityplayersofsalisbury.org, and it'll be September 14th to the 17th at various venues, and also the 21st to the 24th. We'll be doing it at our building, our new building that we're turning into a performance space, as well as some other venues, including the Harriet Tubman Museum and Educational Center on Ray Street in Cambridge, we're looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, and we're looking forward
Very
to seeing
excited.
it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.